today we're going to be fine-tuning where you might have lived in a past life and going further into the environment. This is number 3 in the series, looking into ways of knowing our past lives from our present life. I want you to remember what yes you're getting for these, because you will get yeses or nos. Remember what the yeses are, because then they will help you to understand where you possibly could have lived in a past life. All right, for example, the seashore. Do you have a really strong desire to live by the sea? Or would you rather live in the mountains? Or is it more important for you to live in a city? Some people, whether it's in the mountains or whether it's by the sea, what matters to them more than anything is they want the hustle and bustle of a city. Then there's those people who don't want to be anywhere near a city and they want to be in the country. Is that you? Or is an opposite to the mountains? There are also people who prefer to live where it's flat. Are you one of them? What about, do you like especially warm weather? So are you a warm weather person? There are also people who don't want to be where it's hot. They like where it's cold or temperate. They don't want to be sweating all the time. They like cool, fresh weather. Are you one of them? Now, do you prefer deserts? I lived in Phoenix, Arizona for a while, and there are people who love the desert. Are you one of them? What about swamps? Some people actually really like wetlands. They like the smell of the swamp. They like that fertile smell of life all around them. Next, we're going to describe what these different environments could mean. So say you really are drawn to living at the seashore in this life. Could you then have been in the past a sailor or a businessman? Because a lot of businesses in the olden days, businesses were conducted by ships. They didn't even have trains at first. Everything was done on the water. So also, if you're attracted to living by the seashore, could you have lived on an island? If you're drawn to living in the mountains, could you have in the past been some kind of a herder, somebody who dealt with like goats and even cows? Because some of the best cheeses and butters come from mountainous areas. The water there is full of all these amazing minerals. So you might be drawn to the mountains because in a past life, you had herds of goats and you were a cheesemaker. And if in this lifetime you're drawn to making cheese, well, likely you were a cheesemaker in a past life. Big cities have almost always represented commerce and also the arts. The arts are usually thriving in cities, the opera houses, the art museums, all that kind of thing are in cities. Now, if you prefer the country, perhaps you were a farmer in a past life. Now, if you like the idea of living on flat land, unbelievably, I have a girlfriend who said to me, I don't like the mountains and I'm crazy about the seashore. She was like, I'm not those people who want to live on the beach. She said, I just want to be somewhere where it's flat. And I said, why is that? She said, because of my horses. So if you are drawn to the plains, could you have been a horseman or horsewoman? Could you have been a Native American or First Nations person who lived in the plains? If you prefer hot climates, then could you have lived in a country closer to the equator? Now, if you like cold temperatures, then Could you have been, say, an Eskimo, or could you just have been any native person in the temperate zones, whether it's North America, Europe, Asia, in Europe, be like Scandinavia, in Russia. I have a girlfriend who's just so drawn to Russia and specifically St. Petersburg. If you have a place that means a whole lot to you, you don't know why, there is a really good chance that you lived there in a past life. Now, what if you're drawn to deserts? Well, there are huge deserts in Australia. So could you have been in Australia? And the Gobi Desert, which is in Asia, or the Sahara in Africa. You might have been in one of these countries surrounding the desert or even in the desert. And if you especially like camels or think they're really cool, there's a good chance you were living somewhere in a desert. All right. So, what I suggest is that you take what resonated with you today and look at the previous video, episode 2, of these very popular destinations. And I'll put that, I think this is the correct place to point to it, that it'll turn up here a link to go to the previous video. And I was just thrilled to have received a comment from someone who said, they enjoyed the video, and that for them listening to the different places, they thought, I'd like to go visit all of them. You know what? As I was making the video, I was thinking that myself. There were so many really fine places that a person can visit on Earth here, but still, there are certain places that are more important to you than others. For example, this is what I'm talking about. One of the tourist destinations was the Eiffel Tower in France. So, if this is a desired destination for you, and you also really like cities, and of course, Paris is a city. When I was talking about Paris before, I could only think about the guillotine as a past life, that you would have been an aristocrat and got your head cut off. Well, that's because that was my past life. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. Or you could have been a peasant that got freed by the French Revolution. However, the other really significant thing about Paris is its wonderful artistic tradition. So if you think of Gertrude Stein, she had these soirees in her home where she entertained artists like Pablo Picasso, writers like Ernest Hemingway. There was just this whole group of, it was like a renaissance there in Paris. So if you find it especially attractive to want to go to Paris and you love cities, could you have been involved in your past life in this amazing movement of artistic flowering? If you like France, but you don't like cities, for example, and you really like countries, France is also known for its vineyards and wines. Could you have lived in the wine country and your family been involved in making wines? Then there's southern part of France. This is where so much lavender comes from. Maybe you were farmers dealing with spices. France also has this wonderful tradition of perfumes. So talking about spices, there's also all these perfumes that have come out of France. These are things you could have been doing in a past life if you have a feeling for France. What I'm doing is showing you how you could put together these different environments that I'm talking about today with the actual destinations from the previous episode 2, and you would get a clearer idea of where you might have lived in a past life. The next week, I'm going to continue with episode 4. And this time we're going to look at talents you have. So I'm looking forward to seeing you then. It's Carol Ann Chapman. I'm author of When We Were Gods, which is a chronicle of my past life memories of Atlantis. I'll see you next time. Toodaloo. Bye-bye.